Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Quality of Life show. We are welcoming Steve Piacente back on the show. He is the owner of Next Phase Life Coaching, and he's the author of Your New Fighting Stance, Good Enough Isn't, and You Know It. He's also an author of some fiction stories, too. We love it. Just find him on Amazon, Steve Piacente, or go to his website, stevepiacente.com. He's also a director of training at the Communications Center in Washington, D.C. And since we're recording in Virginia, right near there, I think we probably drove by your office, Steve, because I got lost the other day. So welcome back to the show, but it's good to be in your hood, literally, kind of in your region, we should say.
It's a pleasure to welcome you to the area, Nancy and Lisa.
Hey,
thank you.
So are we still in the Eastern Shore? If we're like recording this from Lorton, Virginia, or is that not the Eastern Shore anymore?
I don't believe that we consider that the Eastern Shore.
Oh, I keep telling people I'm on the Eastern Shore, man.
Well,
you'd be safer saying you're on the Eastern Coast.
Oh, okay. The East Coast. Oh, okay. Well, we were in Maryland we were in the Chesapeake Bay area, and I'm now just totally where were we? Queenstown. So that's the Eastern Shore, right?
Yeah, once you get by the water, that's what we consider the Eastern Shore.
Okay, we got it. So
see that the word shore.
Yeah, but listen, and I'm getting there slowly to my segue of the topic of conversation today is what kids can teach us adults. And we saw families the other day. We both got sunburned out at Tuckahoe State Park in Maryland.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Looking over, we had all these, there was water lilies, and it was like the perfect day to be in a park for a picnic. And we saw families out there learning how to kayak and everything. And I think the kids started teaching the adults. I'm just saying, and I wanted to bring this up straight away to you about talking about kids and adults, because I kind of feel like we have negative thoughts where the kids are like, come on, let's just do it, man. Let's just try it. And that's what we saw at that part.
There is that where kids are full of, let's go do it. And then the parents, because they're safety minded, have we can do this, but not that, and it's a bit of a downer for the kids, but it has to be there. Can you strike a balance?
So I'm in the wonderfully unique position of not only having my own kids, 3 adults, but now they have had kids themselves. And so what we forget is what we learn from these little human beings when they're 2, 3, 4, up to 9 and 10 years old. And it turns out that there's quite a bit. So I put the question to my own kids. We're asking today, what have you learned from your own children? And I got some interesting answers. Let me just rattle off a couple for you. So my middle daughter, first thing she said was setting limits. I learned how to set limits and not be a people pleaser.
What?
That's cool.
Yeah.
Whoa.
That's way cool.
Yeah, because if you do, I mean, then you're catering to dog. The tail is wagging the dog, right? And the little kids are cool. You want to be popular with your children, but you don't want to let them run the house. My older daughter talked about the art of negotiating. she's got
Nancy, come on, this is true.
Yeah.
And in parentheses, when she wrote back to me, she says, as our neighbors' kids are over here playing at 8:10 on a school night. So she was talking about negotiating, but she was losing that negotiation.
Oh,
that's funny.
Lisa was as a child, if I may say so,
perfectly behaved,
super negotiator. Like when I say, okay, well, you've done this and it's wrong, and we're gonna have to do this about it, he would start with, do you really think that's necessary? And then it would
What?
start from,
I never did that.
yes, you did. And then you would start with, okay, do you really think that's necessary? And then she would tap one foot, put her hands on her hip and sigh and tap one foot. Like she was now talking to the dumbest person on earth, which would be me.
Now,
Do you
Lisa,
think it's necessary for you to even bring this up on the show?
Yeah, it's like, do you think I don't know what I just did? Because I'm like, you did this, this, and this. And she'd look at me like, well, yeah, I know what I did. You know, you
now,
don't
now,
have to repeat it. I know
now,
what I did.
now, Lisa, I'm sure there's no videotape of this, but I can kind of see you doing it. So
Yeah.
now my
See?
son's daughter, relating to what Nancy just said, my son's daughter said they teach us to get creative with language and
Oh,
offering choices and alternatives to make them think they got what they wanted.
Oh, oh, Nancy's the
wow.
queen of that. Nancy's also the queen of the guilt trip over
Oh,
that
yeah.
because as a single mom, she one day caught me ditching school,
Oh,
and she
see?
got me like finding me at my friend's house and calling
Mhm.
there.
Yeah.
Remember, this is pre-cell phone times,
Yeah.
and going. The school called, and they called and said, "This is because I'm a single mom,
Yeah. Because
and
they
that you
called me
have
an
that
they were
unfit
like,
mother."
I'm an unfit mother.
But it's actually a true thing. Actually, did happen.
Now we're
That
talking
did
like
actually
this,
happen.
We're talking like this, but let's bear in mind that the children that we're referring to in my little stories, they're 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. There's no,
Yeah,
That's
but
different than
they're already. You see,
teenagers.
but they have no limitations.
right.
Whereas, you see, that's what I was saying. There's like that. And when I was watching the kids and the families kayaking,
Mhm.
the kids, there was just this energy of like, come on, we can do this. Whereas the adults had that, I don't know, that's what I was going to say, going back to what your kids are learning, but the kids have this when you're 2 to 8 years old, you just don't have that, you're game to try things.
Yep.
Because you haven't learned yet.
Well,
And so
also,
your parents want to keep you from getting hurt because they've been
also,
hurt.
yeah, very, very tied to this is, I would say, and I'm looking more at my own kids now than my grandkids, but creativity. They teach us creativity because they're so natural and they're so creative, and it inspires us sometimes to come up with new ideas, to try new things like kayaking and stuff like that. So, it may be things that we never would have dreamed of doing were it not for the kids. So I would put that under this category too.
Yeah, because
So
you get stuck in your ways. You get your habits that work for you, and then you never break out unless something happens to make you break out of your habits. And children are a great avenue for that.
well, I want to go to things do happen in life. And, there's a whole thing, even when kids fall down and hurt themselves, do you go, oh no, and make them cry? Or when they were like, they fell down and hurt themselves with the rest of the kids, they would have kept running,
Yeah,
running around. Do you know what I mean? So there's that difference in
I do.
parenting. So let's go with that, because that analogy of, Nancy would go like, what did you do to the ground?
I
Like,
know.
how do
One
you
time I
think
was
the
told
ground feels?
you broke the
ground.
dirt. You broke
Or,
the earth.
she wouldn't let me go into this big pity party of I skinned my knee,
Right.
because
Yeah,
now if it was really something bad, there's a difference.
there's a difference.
But
Yeah.
skinning your knee, get over it. That's kids play. You need to move on.
Well, I think
So,
at the core of what you're talking about is unconditional love, which is another thing that if we didn't know it, that they teach us. But, this specific about how you respond when they fall, for instance, I think this has changed a little bit over time. And at one point, it was be very understanding. And at one point, it was try to buck up and deal with it. But the conclusion I've come to with 6 grandchildren is not to forget about individuality. Some of them will fall and they'll spit on it and they'll get right back in the game. Others will fall and they'll start crying and they need mommy or daddy for 5 minutes to get over it. So, it's a little bit different per kid and how far you take it in terms of
Mhm.
giving into it or coddling them. I think it just depends a little bit on you and the kid.
Well, everybody's
It's true.
individual, and every
That's really
relationship,
true.
every relationship is individual in a way, right? So going back to the kids getting out there and having fun, what I wanted to go to is like things can happen in life, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so like I go back to your book, Your New Fighting Stance.
Mm.
When we see kids, they fall down, maybe it is, they need the 5 minutes of, okay, maybe we put a boo-boo on it and have a conversation. Oh, it's really not that bad. Are you really hurting right now?
Right.
Having
Mm.
that 5 minutes or just spit on it and move on.
Yep.
So isn't that something we need to look at in life? Maybe we need the 5 minutes, maybe, and it depends on the situation. I mean, if you fell into the Grand Canyon, that's a whole
Oh,
other deal.
That's a
Well, you're
big
probably not
owie.
alive at that point, but you know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
different levels.
Mm.
So, but in life, with kids, kids have this resilience, most of them,
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Right.
everybody's different,
Mhm.
like you're saying. I think
Yeah.
that's a very, very good point.
And
But we can learn that way with being a little bit open.
yes, and resilience is something we learn and maybe forget and can relearn. And
Yeah.
kids are a great source of inspiration for that. Now, in fighting stance, the whole point of that was to find these people who were willing to tell me about their lowest points in their lives and what they learned about themselves in these moments. And a lot of it had to do with resilience. And then my goal was to figure out how to pass on whatever lessons they learn to my readers and see how that would be applicable to them if they could take something from these stories. That was the goal of the book.
Mhm.
Well, I think
Mhm.
you did it. I mean,
Yeah.
I think having those true stories are cool. And that's the thing. And people, you should go get it. It's on Amazon. Are you writing any more books, by the way? Fiction, nonfiction?
I'm on pause for the moment, but
He's playing with his grandkids.
yeah, well, I'm doing a lot with communication training. I'm doing a lot with photography. And yes, there's a lot of family things going on right now, but
That's cool.
there's always something percolating in my brain.
That's cool.
Mhm.
With kids, I talk about this a lot about going on a hike with a friend when we started our tour. And she's oh my God, she's going to be a teenager. That's what's so crazy, how time flies by when kids all of a sudden are teenagers.
Yeah.
Like, how did that happen? But she went on a hike with us. It was a good friend of mine's daughter, little girl, and she starts talking to me about the plants, and she made us slow down on our hike and observe things as adults that if
Mhm.
she wasn't there, we would have just kept talking.
Mhm.
Oh, notice the big things like the hawks and things like that,
Sure.
and eagles flying overhead. But she wanted to look at the little teeny itty bitty things in the
Mhm.
flowers,
Which is
which
really
means we could
awesome.
spend the entire day just doing that, which was fine with me. But it made me realize that they are very observant, that maybe we need to adopt that.
Yeah. So it makes me think of two things that we also learn from kids. One of them is patience.
Mhm.
Because
All right.
kids have their own pace and way of doing things. And the other one is flexibility, because
Mhm.
for all our plans, as you say, Lisa, things happen. And sometimes things happen in a bad way. Sometimes things happen in kind of a neutral way. Here we are on this hike. Let's look at these things that we didn't intend to look at along the way. So yeah, we have to be flexible about that. And kids remind us that we have to be flexible.
That's
What
a
a-
good thing.
What about
A good thing.
imagination?
Oh,
Because do you think
Mm.
in our brains in life, we have the positive and negative thing going? And as we get older, we have more negatives running through our brain than positive. We go, oh, no, no, no. Oh,
Mhm.
we could do that. No, it's like change no before yes, right? Unless we train our brains to do differently. With kids, you have this pureness,
Right.
where they don't have that negativity. So then imagination, and you want to spark your kids' imagination. You want them to use their brain for imagination. But I'm going, as adults, I mean, as creatives, like I know you are, Steve, Nancy is,
Mhm.
we all are creatives in fiction, nonfiction, music, all of that, photography, art. Nancy is an artist, but imagination comes in everything you do in life.
Yeah.
Whether you're an accountant, right? We want them
Right.
to be
Well, they're
creative. So
creative.
kids have that, like without limits.
So, so I'm laughing because you reminded me of the 8-year-old. So the 8-year-old girl is a child I have never seen not wearing some kind of princess dress or tiara.
Oh,
If this
funny.
girl does not go into the arts, I will be absolutely amazed. With that comes
Mm,
a little bit maybe of what we'll call the artist personality.
mm.
So I'll give you, it's this funny story. I'll tell it on myself. One day I tell her to do something and she stops in cold in her tracks and she looks at me with full eye contact and she says, "You take care of you and I'll take care of me."
Oh,
No way.
So we had a
back
quick
one.
discussion about how you talk to adults.
That was funny.
but
That's funny. I like it.
yeah, it was stunning to hear this come out of the mouth of an 8-year-old.
Well, they're far more intelligent than what adults give credit to children now, especially since television. Um, the way they verbalize and the way they think is way faster than when with kids who grew up without television. Let me just say it that way.
Yeah.
Um,
And phones now.
the freedom to say, like, I mean, I grew up in a household where you spoke when you're spoken to, will let you know when you can answer kind of syndrome. And that surely isn't the way Lisa was brought up. But
Apparently not.
no, there are times. No, but that it's a total different
Mhm.
thought process and a way of raising a child.
Right.
But at the end of the day, for the most part, I think the real personality of the child as they become older, their
Mm.
real personality will come out unless they're really mistreated.
And so
Like
what
really.
and so what you're saying, Nancy, is something I totally agree with. And if I could take it
Mhm.
one step further, I think
Sure.
kids teach us empathy, right?
Hmm.
Because we learn that they are not little clones, but little individuals, and
Yeah.
we
Mm.
have to um, develop this greater sense of empathy and understanding. And by the way, empathy to me is not I know how you feel. Empathy to
Mhm.
me is I don't know how you feel, and that's why I'm
Mhm.
here to learn and listen and understand.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think also
That's a good
it's
point.
interesting about
Good point.
kids when you say they're individuals, because a lot of times they're looked
Oh
at
yeah.
as this is my mini me. And somebody said that to me about their child. This is my mini me.
Yeah,
And I thought,
no, it's
or
not.
was it, I don't know, maybe it was a news thing. And I kind of looked and I was like, boy, that kid's going to be in trouble,
Yeah.
especially as a
Mhm.
mother-daughter.
Mhm.
That's not healthy. I know
Mhm.
that, for Nancy and I mean, we have to have that tenacity of difference.
Right.
Otherwise,
Oh yeah.
God, we're going to annoy the heck out of each other.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But the kids
It's
are individuals,
totally
and like what
different.
you were saying about your own granddaughter and being artistic and watching her with the tiara and everything,
Mhm.
that's got to be a joy to watch.
Oh
Just
yeah.
to
That's funny.
apps, don't you want to write down what they're doing in a way?
Oh yeah. I mean, well, thankfully the phones
Your
all have
photography.
video
Yeah.
now, and
Yeah.
Well,
she's also
mm,
she'll look at something and make up a story about it.
mhm.
Oh,
So
Cool.
it's kind of fascinating. We play this little game where she'll start it and then I'll add a piece to the story and then she'll add another piece. And next thing you know, we're in some kind of fantastical world. And it's a lot of fun.
oh, I love that. I love that.
One place we lived in Africa on the property, there was like a wooden freight thing. And 2 days later it was turned into Lisa's restaurant. She's just a little kid, but
Oh,
she had this idea in her mind. I'm like, okay. And so we had to get her an order book little apron and put on a little hat. And she was totally into, probably from a book or
Oh, just going out. I
just
wanted
going
I wanted
out,
to
or
be
she wanted to be a
everybody.
waitress.
I wanted to be a nun. I wanted to be a
Yeah. Oh
waitress. I wanted
gosh.
to be a
Yeah.
vet. I wanted to be a
Yeah.
photographer. I wanted to be just about absolutely
Mhm.
everything I saw, like
Yeah.
anybody doing things. I wanted to do it. I
Yeah.
wanted to see how it is. And I think that comes into what we do as documents, in podcasts and
Yeah.
magazines. It ties into it. So watching kids and seeing their path,
Mhm.
that's
That's
something
interesting.
interesting. I just recently met up with my best friend from high school and
Mm.
my graduating years, because I went to a lot
Cool.
of schools, travel wise. And we sat down and we're like, there is no getting away from when you're in your high school years. And I know we're talking younger kids, but when you know each other as kids, you know who you are growing up, especially
Mhm.
those with friends from 2-3 years old and growing up.
Mhm.
You all kind of had this destiny. You could change what you wanted to do, but you knew who each other were. There's a come to reality moment with actually keeping your friends from school, that when you go to these reunions and people shy away from them, and if you can do it, do it. I think it's an important, it's an interesting thing, because your friends from school, any age, are the ones who know you because you're more pure as a kid than
Mm.
Oh
when life
yeah.
hands you things. And you have to change with life and growth, right? That's part of it, is growth. It's not negative, it's positive too.
Right.
But as kids, you wear your heart on your sleeve. I
Sure.
think
Yeah, you're
that's what
not
I'm trying to say.
hiding. You're not hiding who you
Yeah. And you
are.
get to the point, just like your granddaughter that said, you take care of you and I'll take care of me. Talk
That's
about get to the
funny.
point.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
boom.
funny.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
here's a funny thing to add on to what you said, because when you graduate high school, then you go to college and you get that first job, and now you've kind of become an adult, and now maybe you get married, and now you have your own kids and you have your house, and you kind of have this professional adult persona, and then along come these little babies. And the other thing that they teach you or remind you or allow you to be again is they teach you the value of being silly again.
Yeah.
And be
Huge.
silly again. And you kind of forget about that. You stash it, you put it aside, and then all of a sudden you're dancing around the living room with these little kids, and it's crazy.
Yeah, it's
But
fun
it's
though.
fun.
It's
Come
absolutely
Yeah.
on.
fun.
Listen,
Absolutely fun.
it's like, okay, so I have a friend who's, and Nancy and I were like this. You're gonna clean the house, okay? Put on, 60s rock and roll, and you
That's
get
right.
silly with, and if as kids, it was like, oh, it's house cleaning time, it's chores, or are you gonna make it fun? So it makes the household fun. It's like you're gonna get through the chores, but you're silly. And
Yeah.
kids will go, come on, we get to be silly
Mhm.
with the broom. We'll still sweep, but we want to
That's
be
right.
silly. If I,
Absolutely. Mhm.
and I think as adults, we absolutely need that, because
We need
our
silly
stress
time.
levels. What do you think about this, Steve, right now as a life coach?
Mm.
Are you seeing people's stress levels a little bit higher than they used to
Yeah.
be?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it ties back to the importance of something else. I'll relate it to the subject of the day, because I think kids teach us how to become better communicators, right? To explain something, to teach something, to get a point across. You may have to do it 2, 3, 4 different ways before the kid understands or will go along. And flash forward to being adults now, we've all just come out of 3 years of isolation, and everybody is going back to work and going back downtown, traffic, commuting, all of that. So I do think people's stress levels are higher, and that is where being able to communicate out and to receive, it becomes really, really important.
And
Yeah,
being
it's
silly.
not
Yeah.
it's not always easy to be, I don't want to use the word level because I don't like that word, but to be at the same place in two minds, like
Oh,
this
yeah.
person, yeah, they think this, and if you know the person,
Right.
it's easier than when you don't know the person. It's the person you just met, then you don't really know, so you got to be careful
Right.
and fish around until you find out, oh, now I see who you are.
Yeah.
So now I know
Yeah.
how to talk.
The way
In
I would
order,
say that is to try to meet them where they are.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Mhm.
That you don't offend, so that you can get along, and so that you build a rapport and a relationship,
Mhm.
as opposed to I think this, and
Right.
my way or the highway, which seems to
Mm.
have been an older generation thing.
Well,
So,
kids are really good about knowing who's who in the group, right?
right.
You know, if you look at like Stand By Me, look at that movie, right? And the book
Mhm.
and everything. Look at groups of kids, right? Kids know this one can build the fort, this one cannot. This one knows how to light a
Mm.
fire. No, we don't want to
Yes.
talk about kids
Well,
lighting fires. Anyway, yeah, I burned some carpet as a kid, but don't give me matches as a kid. But you know, every kid in the I'm gonna call it the gang of kids, we all knew each other's talents, even in sports, or you know, we kind of knew it,
like
and
a
we didn't
little
need
army.
adults. We are
Right.
like little armies. We
It's
already we
like a
suss
little
our,
armies.
and
Yeah.
it can get out of hand and get some can bully. So that is a truth.
So
Yes.
you mentioned Stand By Me. I'll mention another movie. There was a movie called Pocahontas, and in the movie Pocahontas, there was a song called "Colors of the Wind."
Mm-hmm.
And in the song "Colors
Oh,
of the Wind," there's a line that goes, "When you walk the footsteps of a stranger, you learn things you never knew you never knew." And I
yeah.
think this gets back to what Nancy was talking about. It's basic
Mm.
human interpersonal relations.
Mm.
It's about understanding things we're trying to from the other person's point of view. And I think we all could use a little bit more of that right now.
Mm-hmm. That is a very good point. I
And
like
you know
that.
what? And I think we should. I mean, my hobby or interest is to get that with animals. I want to know what they're thinking. I've always had this no, I really do. I like to sit in the wilderness and watch an animal. Guess what it's going to do next?
Mhm.
And see. And when you make direct eye contact, sometimes I feel like they're saying something
Yeah.
and thinking you don't get it, or
Yeah.
you know. But I feel like if you can learn to understand another living being, whether it be an animal or a person, or I don't know about plants, that'd be a little really difficult, but
Mhm.
um, that it's worthwhile.
Yeah.
So you don't feel like you're on this earth alone, and that you start to take responsibility for the things, living beings around you.
I'll tell you, if you look at my Instagram account, you'll see a lot of portraits of animals. And when
Mm.
you're doing those, it requires a lot of patience because
Mm. Oh yeah.
the most rewarding moment for me is when that animal looks into my camera lens, because
Yeah.
Yeah.
then I feel that connection,
It's
and that is a
trust.
shot that's worthwhile.
That's
Yeah,
the
it
trust.
takes time and patience and
Yeah.
learning
Mhm.
how they breathe, how they maneuver, how they move. You
But
know, it's
it's
like
trust.
we like I learned like going out in the wilderness and you hear a bird, you're going to hear a bird before you see it. And
Mhm.
Mhm.
you need to learn your bird calls, and then you know this bird's action is they go for food this way, they go up or down or side, you know, everybody flies differently.
Mm.
It's the same as kids. Kids understand that,
Mhm.
and they get in there in the mud with the worms.
Yep.
I
Some
love
of the
that.
girls weren't. I can guarantee the one wearing a tiara is not going to. Well, maybe she will. But
Well,
I just I think kids get us to remember
Mm.
to not
The
have put
kids.
limits on ourselves. That's the
well,
one thing.
mhm.
And so when you say your new fighting stance, I think it's also about stop this limiting factor, because the limiting factors, you know, that we put on ourselves,
Absolutely, yes.
that is stress.
Yeah. Yeah. Where did that limit come from? How is it serving you? Maybe it was something that you needed a long time ago. Now you're older, wiser, and ready for more. And you have to
Mm.
pull that string on the bus stop and get off and get on a different bus.
Well, you know, when you're growing up,
School bus.
you're told for a lot of years, don't do this, do it this way. Don't do this,
Mhm.
do it this way. Don't do this, do it this
Yeah.
way. which has always kind of been a negative way of teaching. So I feel like, in the newer ages, maybe it the negative language could be tossed.
Yeah.
And also letting kids have their space to grow. So like
Well,
there's,
yeah,
I know
and
there's the
let
term
them
helicopter
be who they
parenting.
are.
I don't
No,
know
but
quite.
letting the person be the person that they are
Yeah.
and who they're meant to be without curtailing them into what you want them to be.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that requires one other thing that I think, I don't know if we're getting toward the end here, but one other thing that I think is really important that they teach us, which is humility, right? We don't have all
Oh,
the answers. Sometimes we think we
No,
do, and
no,
sometimes we think we should, but
I don't
man,
want to.
we all know we don't. So you learn a little bit of humility in the process as well.
oh, I
Mhm.
love that. I wanted to touch on that with you too, because as a grandparent,
Mhm.
now you're watching your kids
Yeah,
raise their kids. And I know you asked them, okay, what did the kids teach you?
yeah.
Mm,
But for you watching them, I mean, no parent's perfect. I know that you and Nancy are, 100% perfect,
Yeah.
but no, but don't
No.
you learn stuff watching your kids parent? Like, is there a growth for
So
you as a grandparent?
So, what I would say is that my wife and I did a perfect job, and everything that my kids are teaching their kids is perfectly in accord with what we taught. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I know. I've got everything is
That's
100%.
why I was laughing because I already know there's no such thing as perfect.
Right, right. No, but I will say that for the most part, there would not be a time when I would say, "Stop! You're doing that wrong. You need to change this." For the
Mm,
most part, I mean, there might be degrees,
mm.
but for the most part, I would say they're doing a great job, and I don't really have too much to say about it. Nancy, what you were saying about the negativity, the only time I really see my kids getting hard on them and negative is if something is dangerous. Like
Yeah,
you cannot run into the road,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or you have to wear your helmet when you're on your bike, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, they get a lot of space, these kids.
I think
You
that's important.
know,
I got a lot of space, and
good.
we were in the wilds of wilds, when I
Yeah.
was in
Mm.
those age groups with wild dangerous snakes. I mean, I really had to learn, like, do not do this because you literally could die if you walked over
Yeah.
here, and
Mhm.
you needed to learn to observe. And I was that way anyway as a kid, but I think you know, I think also what we're talking about is also even how kids are taught in schools. It's this, I love that we're even talking about kids, because
Mm.
we need to do everything we can for them as educators too. Education is so key that I would like to see this country support our teachers a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
No
and
argument here.
just so that they can do their best job. They shouldn't be limited when they're doing something, when they're teaching. But like as a grandparent, where I was going to is like just watching your kids. Are you watching your kids like you're watching your
Funny.
grandkids, your immediate children? Because watching them, like, is that kind of cool to go, hey, look at them grown up now. I remember, you as 6 years old doing this. Now you've got a 6-year-old and they're
Yeah.
doing this. That's got to be kind of cool to watch.
That's cool. I mean, I'll say first off that the best thing about being the grandparent is that while I love all of them and I love for them to come to the house, at the end of the night, they go home.
Okay, I have to say, traveling on the road with Lisa, there's so many times when things happen on the road.
Yeah.
Most of them are good, but every once in a while it's a hiccup. And she is right out there. I'm like, God help you guys on the other side. She's coming at you.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
it's like, well, no, but she is her own person for sure. And she has, if she has fear, she hides it really well,
Yeah.
but she always manages to be articulate.
Mhm.
And there's times when I say to her, calm down, calm down, calm down, because I can see she's really boiling now. Like, you need to calm down. You just calm down so you can
it's called
think
passion.
clearly.
There you go.
Yeah. But it's amazing. And I'm like, oh, look at that, man. I wonder if I would have handled it that way when I was
Yeah.
her age. It's like, was I that? Like, because we are two very different people,
Right.
but
But
the
this
goals
main,
and the goals and the things you value seem to be the same.
but the world has also changed, right? So that's my
Yeah.
point on this, is that kids
Mm.
actually make you stop and think.
Well, the
That's
world
my point.
changes really fast now. Like the
Mhm.
information we get is so fast. It's like, can you keep up? When I look at kids and what they're supposed to keep up with now compared to what I had in school,
Mhm.
I'm like, really?
Yeah. Well, I heard something the other day that I probably had heard before, but forgot. It's a quote from Kierkegaard, who said that life can be understood backwards, but must be lived forward.
Yeah, that I like that. That's good.
Right. So,
Yeah.
looking back,
Mhm.
going through this experience as a grandparent is a blessing, because you get to kind of relive those experiences once again. And then, with the grandkids at each stage of their development, it's a treat as well.
Mm.
And if you don't have that, you don't have it. But
Well, we have dogs here that are barking. So how about that's my grandkids.
there you
So I
go.
always tell them I get to give
Yeah.
them extra treats because we're not the parents.
Right.
We're the
I just think it gives
grandparents.
you it just gives you a little different perspective,
Mm.
and you
Mhm.
get, like I say, you do get to relive some of those moments.
That's cool though. I
Yeah.
think it's cool because it keeps you on your toes and to always think and
Oh yeah,
continue to grow. That's my point.
yeah.
Kids make you continue to grow.
I'll bet if I
And
asked you, if a little kid said to you, "You take care of you, and I'll take care of me," how you would have responded. I'll bet I would get two very different answers.
um I don't want to answer that right
I know exactly what you would say.
now.
You just look at him and go, bite me.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. I'm just like, well, go on then. I don't, it's so weird because as a person who has not had kids, and it's not that I don't like kids, but I'm not always around kids. But when I am, they come mess with me for some reason. They kind of go, this is the person who doesn't hang with kids, let's mess with them. That's the weird thing about kids. They always it's like the person who goes, I don't know anything about dogs. I don't want to be around dogs. The dog's gonna go right to you and go, yeah, I'm gonna,
Hello.
and yeah,
Hello.
I'm gonna slobber on you or whatever. But
Right.
Put
kids
my
do that to
paw
me,
out.
but I really love them because whenever I stop and just take time to hang out,
Mhm.
and that's to me a lesson right there. Stop, listen, hang out. They're important.
Right.
That's why we do what we do, is for kids. The parks, the public lands thing that we do is for that.
Mhm.
And when you can see the parks and you can see things that you're working on through their eyes and through their parents' eyes and grandparents' eyes and community eyes, when you see a kid like really enjoy a swing or a playground and there's a
Mhm.
certain thing, I don't know, that to me, it's like kids want to belong to something. And so
Yeah.
that's something, we talk about where can we go as adults? Kids want to be part of the community. There was a playground that kids helped rebuild after a fire in Yuma, Arizona. An arsonist took down their playground. And
Mhm.
it's one of these really specialized ones. And the kids came back with the community. They got insurance money. They were able to rebuild. But at the last part was kids were able to paint parts and do parts of the playground, the fun stuff.
Mhm.
That was their piece, their own thing. And
Oh.
when you see kids do those kinds of projects,
Right.
Mhm.
and public art is a big deal of that. That to me, when I see how excited they are that it's not just their piece of paper, it's not just a drawing for
Well, they're
the
invested.
refrigerator wall,
Mhm.
they get that sense of community. So when you see their faces with joy and that they're part of something bigger, I just want to say to adults, let's start involving our kids in community, period.
No
I,
argument here once again.
yeah, I think that
See,
the
you got
sense
us
of
all riled up.
community, now the sense of community gets so dispersed in this country because we're all so busy and we're all so dislocated. We live over
Mhm.
here, but our family's over there, and we get dispersed and busy. We work way too many hours
Mm.
so that our kids suffer. And I think that to make up for that, something has to change.
Mm.
I don't know how many hours, like when kids grow up, the kids of today grow up, how many hours are they going to work? Because there's hardly any hours left to work. You know what I mean? You can only do so much,
Mm.
and we
Wow.
take on way too much. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping people will draw back a little and realize that the family deserves as much or more time than the workplace.
It's another subject for another time, but
Yeah.
we're not going back to the way things used to be, right?
No,
So it's
no.
going to be a hybrid workplace at a minimum, and
Mhm.
with the advent and the advance of AI, the workplace is going to look very different. So I don't want to get into it now, but
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to have that conversation for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
my grandkids will grow up in a very different world than the one that we did.
Right.
Well,
Mhm.
Steve, let's do that. I know we're going to talk about AI for writers and even just in businesses. Let's do that. Steve will be back, everyone. And I encourage you to go to his website, Steve Piacente. Again, his book, Your New Fighting Stance, Good Enough Isn't, and You Know It. Yeah, I wonder where that grandchild of you got that kind of terminology about you take care of you and I'll take care of me. I don't know. I don't know who.
Can't
Can't imagine.
imagine where it came
But everyone,
from.
Steve is on our show every few months and panel discussions as well. So keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. And if you go to blendradioandtv.com, just type in Steve Piacente and you'll see him there. Thank you so much for joining us, Steve.
Lisa, Nancy,
Thanks,
great to see you
Steve.
again, and thanks very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.